Serious, how many people have died from your high school class so far? How did they die? Attention. Serious tag notice jokes, puns, and off-topic comments are not permitted. Link. Reddit. com/AskReddit/WIKI/INDEX/WIKI_rule 6. In any comment, parent or child, parent comments that aren't from the target group will be removed, along with their child replies. Report comments that violate these rules. Posts that have few relevant answers within the first hour, and posts that are not appropriate for the serious tag will be removed. Consider doing an AMA request instead. Thanks for your cooperation and enjoy the discussion. I'm a bot, and this action was performed automatically. Please contact the moderators of this subreddit /message/compose/to/r/askreddit if you have any questions or concerns. We had 3 in 1 year. 2 were suicides and the third was this kid who was murdered by another student on Christmas Eve over $20 worth of weed. Sad part is this kid has nothing to do with the deal. It was his brother that the killer had a problem with. If I was the brother, I wouldn't even want to show my face to the family. Such a shame. I mean, to be fair, who expects a murder over $20 of weed? I'm guessing it wasn't about the money more than it was about the dealer maintaining a reputation of FCK with me, and you'll regret it. It could have been seen as a sign of weakness, since it's about the principle, not the money. Take it from an off and on dealer. Only the stupid ones do shit like this. It increases your already high chance of getting caught for one or the other or both tenfold if not hundredfold. Beyond that, none wants to buy from a guy they are scared of, especially weed dealers. I know coke dealers and shit that might do this, but definition not a single weed dealer that would kill someone to maintain their reputation. 1. Kid jumped off a bridge with a few other friends to pass time in quarantine. It shouldn't have killed him, but the rapids took him. Didn't know him well, but he was one of the popular kids, and it was all over the local news. Pretty crazy. Did this happen in the Tule River, CA, Tallahassee Bridge, Tallahatchie, in Mississippi, and that was Billy Joe, man. Sorry, from Europe. So, I found out about a death in a roundabout way. An old classmate was tagged in a photo on my FB feed. Thing was, he wasn't in the picture. It was just a couple guys holding a vase of some sort. The caption read, "We had a great time. Thanks for letting us borrow // guy." I looked through some of / guy's photos and kept seeing him tagged in pictures of people holding the same vase. Turns out, he got squashed by some heavy machinery doing construction. After he was cremated, his parents put his ashes in an urn and lent it out to his friends so that they could still hang out with him. It was kind of sweet, albeit a bit unusual. Other deaths that I know of have mostly been suicide or car accidents. A lot happens in a decade. Definitely unusual, but I see nothing too weird about it. It's a bad way to go. To be able to have his friends hold him one last time is sweet to me, even if it's a small gesture. Plus I'm sure his parents are glad to have him out of the house once in a while. They dust while he's out as not to offend him. A lot. 5 heroin overdoses that I know of. 3 car accidents and 3 suicides. I dated a girl from a Rust Belt town where the factories had all left by the early 90s and there really wasn't anything to replace them. Wall-to-wall despair, unemployment and opioids. I've never met anyone who was sober themselves who had more suicides and odds in their circle than she did. What town? Gotta be something like Youngstown, Ohio. Yeah, it was halfway between Cleveland and Youngstown. Her parents, like her grandparents, had worked in some good jobs in plants when first married and had just assumed they could do that until retirement. Everything slowly dried up or moved away. They both scrounged multiple shitty low-paying gigs to pay a mortgage on a house that was losing value. She made more than both of them put together some months as a fine dining bartender on the West Coast where we met. But like every few months, a childhood friend or acquaintance odd or killed themselves. One of her friend's baby daddy killed her friend during a meth binge and left their kid at a firehouse and then led the police on a high-speed suicide by cop chase. He'd been the captain of the football team, but things never happened for him. him the last remaining person in my graduating class. The rest passed away from various causes, mostly old age. This has got me thinking who will be the last remaining person from my class. If you can plan it carefully, it could be you. Mind telling me what you're planning on doing with that machete? Sir, it's an alumni homecoming present. One died in a house fire. The other was killed when his drunk girlfriend slammed her car into a tree. My brother's high school class is truly astounding. One girl was killed by a passing vehicle while collecting cans on the side of the road for ROTC. One guy died of cancer. Another drunk guy fell asleep in the middle of the road after an argument with his mother and got crushed by an oncoming car. Another dude flew his car off the road at a dangerous intersection in town. All of this during their senior year. That's why I wonder why Americans are allowed to drive at 16, but the drinking age is 21. Like WTF. In theory, you'd have 5 years driving experience before you took your first drink. In practice, not so much. Cynically, I'd say maybe we should reverse that. But honestly, at those ages the legal or after the fact limitations are a joke. Driving itself is the issue. The last person who died driving wasn't drunk, but a teen who drove dangerously at an intersection. There is reason why most countries give driver's license at older age. I went to a boarding school in Woodstock, called Hyde School. The school at the time had about 210 troubled kids. Of that 210, I know 20 that have died. I'll use first names. Dan joined the Marines. Died in combat. Jennifer on heroin. Chris died from unknown drugs. Homeless in Florida. Jose died in gang related activities in Brooklyn. Forgot his name, but he tried to jump off a freight train in Ohio. Those 5 are just within my direct circle and off the top of my head. I can come back in the morning with a much larger and detailed list. Edit. To clarify, this comment does not advocate anything negative about the school. I genuinely grew into a much better person, and it may have saved my life. I owe a lot of my life skills to the school, but at the same time, putting 200 kids who have a bad background together in the same hotspot may lead to a lot of negative influence. Lol. Jesus, it sounds like you're reading names from Oregon Trail almost. Just a simple but powerful died in. By all means, go ahead and list them all. Or an Offspring song. Class of 05. 2 have died. One was a rod and the other was cancer. I'm also class of 05, and one person died of cancer. It was a week after she finished the last round of treatment. She developed pneumonia and passed that quick. Legitimately the most innocent, happy, and sweet young woman I've ever met. And I thought knew that long before she passed. One of the only people ever that makes me see the good in a person of faith instead of hypocrisy. Too many. Heroin sucks. It astounds me that so many kids can get access to heroin. I had a good friend. Star quarterback for our freshman team. Die of a heroin odd at 19. He'd been using lots of drugs for years. I still can't believe he's gone 17 years later. It's easier to buy illegal drugs than the legal ones if you're underage. We only graduated this May, and some guy in our class died from a car crash. Was on the local news. Sorry to hear that. Definitely highlights how precious life is and how it can happen to any of us. Stay safe out there. At least 4 that I know of. 1. Suicide. Managed to get a gun, not USA, and shot herself at the university bathrooms during her first semester. 2. Diabetes. She had diabetes since she was 13. All throughout high school she would drink at least 2 Coca-Colas a day. She was 26 when she died. 3. Heart attack. 25Y/O. He was a great guy. Both his parents died in a highway accident on our last year of high school. He still managed to finish uni. He died in his office 1 hour after clocking in. Survived by his younger sister. 4. He was still in uni. Last semester. Started his own business. A candy shop. He caught his employees stealing, so he fired them. Next day they kidnapped him. They beat him to death. There were 82 of us. It was a Catholic high school. Duck those nuns. Beat him to death over being fired from a candy store. Why though? What country or state are you in? Were the employees found guilty in court? I hope so. Who TF beats someone to death because they get fired? That too because they were the ones who stole in the first place. No matter what your excuse is, there is no valid reason to beat someone to ducking death because they fired you for your mistake. I hope they at least got a 20-year sentence, if not longer. Imo. They deserve it. In my town there was a rash of kids driving their car into the school building listening to Free Bird and committing suicide in a pact. The junior high had a teacher who wore a Christian fish pin and molested boys. One turned out extremely violent and killed about 6 women. Holy shit, I've never heard a suicide pact story. That is so surreal and scary. I graduated in 2009. One kid died my senior year of a heroin overdose, which came as a complete surprise to everyone. To my knowledge, no one else in my graduating class of 200 has passed in the years since, but I don't keep up with most of them. I'm shocked at the number of heroin overdoses I've read about in this thread. When I was in high school, the drug of choice was alcohol, and maybe a little marijuana, of course. Now that my class is in our mid-50s, I suppose I'll be reading about more heroin deaths pretty soon. Since heroin is the pain medication my generation is turning to when they can't afford their prescription painkillers. This seemed to be an isolated incident given the circumstances, which I don't need to get into, but the opioid epidemic is very real. I have friends that grew up in other parts of the country, and it seems like everyone in their hometowns have been impacted, at least indirectly. 1. She had a stroke while we were at school. That's horrible. Was there a reason why it happened? Generally, if a young person dies from a stroke, it's a spontaneous stroke from an arterial venous malformation, which is basically a birth defect. Strokes can also be caused by illegal drugs or physical trauma, but then people just say he odd or she died in a car wreck, even if they technically died from a stroke caused by those things. 1. And he was a friend of mine. He got involved selling weed and acid, and someone stole a large amount of weed from him. He decided to try and get back by jumping him, which he was partially successful with, until the guy shot him, I think twice in the chest, and 1 bullet hit his heart. He was a good dude despite what he had gotten involved in, and I miss him. I have a couple friends who have gone down the same path as your friend. When it comes to selling drugs, I'm always worried for them. Not my class, but our rival school. The class that graduated the same year I did, 2019, already lost 3 people in their class of 400, I believe. The first was a girl shortly before she was supposed to turn 19. She was riding a 4-wheeler, but lost control of the vehicle, flipped it, and it landed right on her. The second was a boy who was just minding his own business on the side of the road, and then a 16-year-old kid drove by with a gun and took him out on the spot. The third happened yesterday. This boy got into a motorcycle accident and was in a coma. He was taken off life support yesterday. He was well known in my town for doing magic tricks with his best buddy for years. Bruh, that 16-year-old is ducked. Gangs do some ducked up shit. My grade was just about the only one that hasn't had a death yet, but one of us got lung cancer from chain smoking, and he'll probably die pretty soon. We only graduated last year, so that's pretty ducking stupid. Dude, how the duck is that even possible? If y'all were old then I could understand, but this guy is 19 and already has lung cancer just from smoking? Sounds like the dude was going for the world record speedrun for lung cancer. Cancers are more common than many of us think. It's the unlucky ones who get them early, or have particularly malignant instances happen. This one guy from my class graduated HS 3 years ago, recently got pulled over, ran out of his car into a forest, let the police pursue him, and then snuck back and got into the cop car and drove away. He got caught, and apparently he was on drugs. After he got sentenced, he had just turned 18 at this point. He ended up ending his own life. It's so sad, because I knew the guy before his life spiraled downhill. Such a tragic ending for him, and it's sad to even think about. What was his sentence? I think it was 20 years. He had 4 charges against him. I graduated in 2009. A few died before we even graduated. Car accident, cancer, cliff jumping accident, A couple others have died since graduating. Those few were mostly from drug addictions. I don't know the exact number, but at least 4 or 5 people from my class have died. And my graduating class was only a little over 100 people to begin with. I graduated in 2011. I can't say exactly how many, but the instance is higher than I like. Suicides, motorcycle/car accidents, overdose, combat. I've never really thought of this before, but I realize there's a lot of people who won't be at the reunion, which is incredibly sad. Someone from my primary school died. He was disabled, don't know what he had, and he broke his neck. He was a nice kid. We were close friends for a few years. I moved school, and then I found out that he died. Rest in peace, Henry. Peace. Graduated 11 years ago, and know of one person. Maybe more, but that's all I know of. My class was about 350 kids. That's a really good track record so far, if only one of 350 has died in 11 years. Seriously, I went to a good school with 400 graduates, and we had 3 dead in about 5 years. I had a relatively large class, but in under 10 years since graduating, I know of at least 2 of my friends. One passed away in his sleep. For fun a few weeks ago, I found my middle school yearbook and decided to try looking up my old friends that I never talked with after middle school. First one I looked up passed away back when we were in high school. I had no idea as we went to different high schools. And the second one I looked up was in jail for murder. I stopped after that. That's so sad. Who would have thought that would happen when you were on the playground? (open bracket). Hey, thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.